Chapter 2410, The Eve of the Storm 1. General Gu Cheng of the Brilliant Moon Empire was now half consumed by mental corruption. His eyes were bloodshot, his muscles rigid, his breath coming in ragged gasps like a wild beast. Without immediate intervention, he would become a mindless monster. He's still alive? Zhang Yi was somewhat surprised. Moonfolk rarely endured mental corruption in this place. Whether it was Gu Cheng, Diaolan who sought to kill him, or the mysterious assassin, all had entered with a resolve to die. Fortunately, Zhang Yi and his companions had only stayed in the dark sun forest for a single day, preventing Gu Cheng from being completely eroded. Zhang Yi glanced at Yang Xinxin. Xinxin, can you save him? Xinxin nodded. I can't remove the mental corruption itself. But what if we layer new rules over it, rules that make him remember his identity, memories, and beliefs? That should work. Think of it like redecorating. Mental corruption is like splashing ink on a white wall. Yang Xinxin wasn't scraping off the tainted part, she was applying a fresh coat of whitewash to cover the ink stains. But in terms of effect, it all looked the same. Yang Xinxin slowly raised her right hand, revealing the colossal silhouette of the fallen angel puppet behind her. It drew its bow and arrow. The arrow, imbued with the concept of memes, struck Gu Cheng's body directly. This method of rule-based overlay gradually stripped away the chaos and mental toxins from Gu Cheng's being. The process lasted a full minute before Gu Cheng finally recovered from his near-death state. His gaze gradually cleared as memories flooded back. Gasping for breath, he knelt on the ground. Spotting Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, he instantly understood they were his saviors. Gu Cheng's eyes held gratitude and complexity. Thank you for saving me, Gu Cheng managed with difficulty. But how did you two end up here? Did you find the fire seed? Zhang Yi merely waved his hand dismissively. The mission is complete. Your duty ends here. Next, we'll take Meteor to every corner of the moon. Gu Cheng's heart jolted. He lifted his gaze toward the young girl in the distance. She was currently gazing at the night sky, her eyes clear and pure, seemingly having completely forgotten the blood and fire she had just endured. Gu Cheng opened his mouth but said nothing, only slowly lowering his head. He understood that from now on, he was no longer the pivotal figure. The true hope rested upon this seed girl. Emerging from the forest, the landscape suddenly opened up. High above, two colossal starships hovered between the clouds. Their black hulls resembled sharp blades, while icy lights cascaded from their bellies like the judgmental eyes of the heavens, fixed intently on Zhang Yi and his companions' every move. The surveillance networks of the Brilliant Moon Empire and the Dark Moon Empire had long woven their celestial net. Escape from this tiny planet was utterly impossible. Fang'er raised his head, his gaze dark and heavy. Beneath his cloak, his breathing grew increasingly labored. We cannot escape. Wherever we go, we are watched. This is fate's cage. We are doomed to be trapped and perish on this barren moon. His voice carried pain and despair, each word torn from his flesh with agonizing effort. He couldn't accept that despite risking his life to protect Meteor, he still couldn't escape the chains of fate. Yet now, he had to face reality. Truthfully, this escape had never truly been possible from the start. That was precisely why the Night Witch refused to intervene again. Meteor gently took his hand. Her eyes shone brightly, radiating an innocence and joy he'd never seen before. Fang'er, I'm so happy. Her voice was as soft as a spring breeze. Because I can finally see. I can see the night sky, the mountains and rivers, you, and even the humans of Earth like Chaos and the others. Before, everything was darkness. I could only perceive the world through touch and imagination. But now, I can truly see clearly. Fang'er's body trembled. He slowly turned his head, his gaze locking with the girl's eyes. He wanted to say something, but his throat caught. Meteor spread her arms wide, as if to embrace the moon's entire beauty. So what if I can't leave this place? As long as I can walk every corner of the moon, see its mountains, rivers, and skies, I'll be content. Her smile shone like light, illuminating the darkest corners of Fengu's heart. Zhang Yi smiled faintly but said nothing. He knew this purity and courage embodied the very essence of the fire seed. Thus began their journey. They left the dark sun forest, traversed the polluted wasteland, scaled ice-covered mountains, and crossed lakes reflecting the glow of twin moons. Along the way, Meteor asked constantly, "Chaos, are there mountains like these on Earth? Are they taller than these?" Zhang Yi nodded. Yes. Earth's highest peak is called Mount Everest. It towers even higher than these mountains you see. Snow blankets it year-round, with clouds churning like a sea, resembling a stairway to the heavens. Meteor's eyes lit up. She folded her hands before her chest, as if sketching the image in her mind. And lakes? Are there lakes on Earth too? King Arthur smiled in response, "Of course. Earth's lakes are vaster than these, some as boundless as oceans. When sunlight touches their surfaces, they shimmer like giant mirrors, reflecting the clouds and mountains above." Meteor listened spellbound, her eyes flickering with longing and curiosity. Suddenly, she murmured softly, "If only I could see Earth with my own eyes someday." Fengu lowered his head, his voice hoarse. "It's my fault. If only I had been stronger." Meteor shook her head, her gaze unwavering. "No, Fengu. Even if it's just for a moment, I will hold on to hope. Because hope itself is more beautiful than despair." Their footsteps carried them onward. At each new place, Meteor gazed intently for a long while, as if etching every hue of this world into her eyes. She touched the cold stone walls with her hands and pressed her face against the grass to breathe in the earth's scent. By the lake, she picked up a stone and earnestly asked Zhang Yi if it was the same kind of pebble found on Earth. Zhang Yi smiled and nodded. "Yes, and they're even more numerous and smoother." Tears glistened in the girl's eyes, yet she still smiled. Fengu watched all this silently from the side. His hand remained tightly clenched around the scimitar, as if only this grip could suppress the surging agony and unease in his chest. He knew well that this fleeting journey could not alter destiny, yet for Meteor's smile, he was willing to defy fate once more. High above, two colossal ships continued their pursuit, like God's punishment poised to strike at any moment. Zhang Yi looked up at them, his gaze icy. Yet deep within, he pondered silently, the surveillance from Bright Moon and Dark Moon wouldn't be without reason. It surely signaled a new shift was imminent. Meteor's journey was destined to be anything but peaceful. And all of this might just be the calm before the storm. Chapter 24:11, The Eve of the Storm 2. The sky remained dark and heavy, the wind whistling through the mountains like a low, mournful wail. Zhang Yi halted his steps, gazing at the young girl ahead who stared fixedly at the heavens. A bright light shone in Meteor's eyes, the pure delight of seeing the world for the very first time. Yet Zhang Yi knew this joy was destined to be fleeting. He drew a shallow breath, then waved his hand lightly. The shadow space slowly opened. Black ripples spread outward, like a door to another world. "Kir, do me a favor." Zhang Yi explained his plan to Zhou Kir. "You studied psychology, right? Chat with this little girl. That gloomy-looking guy beside her has such a dark aura. She only has one day to see the outside world, we need to give her some happy memories." Zhou Kir had always felt pity for the poor girl. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, she immediately nodded in understanding. "I understand. Don't worry, I'll keep her company. I'll make sure she has the most beautiful memories." From within the shadows, a beautiful woman slowly emerged. Zhou Kir stepped out of the shadows. Her aura clashed with the cold, moonlit landscape, yet brought a warmth with her. When she saw Meteor, pity flashed in her eyes before giving way to a smile. "Hello, I'm Zhou Kir. I come from Earth. May I keep you company?" Meteor paused, then smiled and nodded. I'm Meteor." Zhang Yi stood not far from them. He introduced, "She's my girlfriend." At this point, he glanced at Fengu, shooting him a warning look. He wasn't worried Fengu would suddenly lash out and take Zhou Kir hostage. After all, with his current strength, eliminating Fengu was merely a thought away. Zhang Yi knew this day belonged to Meteor. Zhou Qir's role was simply to help the girl experience more of this world. They walked across many lunar landscapes. When tired, they sat on rocks in a valley, the wind howling, moonlight pure and bright. Zhou Qir patiently recounted stories of Earth. Earth has 4 seasons. In spring, flowers bloom everywhere, filling the air with their fragrance. In summer, green trees provide shade, and children play in the rivers. Autumn brings golden rice fields and falling maple leaves. Winter brings snow, blanketing everything in white, as if the whole world were wearing a wedding gown. Meteor widened her eyes, her breathing slightly hurried. 4 seasons. How beautiful. The moon only has cold nights and gray light. I never knew such changes existed. Zhou Qir smiled softly, retrieving a small projector from the shadow space. As she activated it, a light screen appeared in the night sky. The images showed scenes from Earth, the azure ocean, undulating mountains, cities filled with towering skyscrapers, streets aglow with lights at night, and the laughter and dancing of people during festivals. Meteor held her breath, completely immersed. Those are films and dramas from Earth. Zhou Qir explained softly, stories woven by people themselves, capturing their dreams, emotions, and hopes in images. Though fictional, they hold so much beauty. In one scene, a young girl ran through campus, backpack slung over her shoulder, her smile radiant. In another, lovers held hands beneath the setting sun, exchanging vows of eternal devotion. Meteor's eyes gradually turned red. She reached out, as if to touch the images. So, the world can be this beautiful. Even if it's fake, I want to keep watching forever. Zhou Qir held her hand, smiling. It isn't fake, Meteor. Precisely because people are willing to believe, these stories are recorded. As long as love and hope dwell in your heart, beauty truly exists. Meteor's tears finally fell. She laughed and cried, her voice trembling. Thank you, Qir. So I really did have a chance to see what this world looks like. On the other side, Zhang Yi and Fengde stood side by side at the opposite end of the valley. The night wind howled, whipping Fengde's black cloak into a frenzy, mirroring the restlessness within his soul. Zhang Yi spoke calmly, Fengde, I have a question for you. Fengde shot him a cold glance but remained silent. Knowing it's all futile, Zhang Yi's tone was calm yet sharp as a blade. Why do you persist? Why risk your life to protect an outcome already doomed to destruction? You must know that after doing what you did, neither the Dark Moon Empire nor the Brilliant Moon Empire will spare you, right? Once matters here conclude, your only path left will be to journey to the Dark Sun Forest and keep the Night Witch company. Fengde fell silent for a moment, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. After a long pause, he finally let out a cold snort. You don't understand at all. His voice was low, tinged with suppressed defiance. Even if the outcome is ruin. Even if all my efforts turn to dust, I will fight to the last breath to protect her. Because that is the meaning of my existence. Zhang Yi gazed at him, his eyes deep and unyielding, offering no further argument. He could feel the weight in Fengde's words, an obsession unshakable by life or death. Night deepened as time slowly slipped away. Finally, dawn's first light spilled over the valley's edge, illuminating the figures of the girl and Fengde. Meteor leaned against Zhou Qir's shoulder, her eyes brimming with contentment and longing. Has the day come to an end? She asked softly. Zhang Yi stepped forward and nodded. Yes, the agreed time has come. We must depart. Meteor took a deep breath, fighting back tears as she forced a smile. She took Fengde's hand and looked at Zhang Yi. Thank you, Chaos. Thank you for letting my eyes truly see the world. Zhou Qir embraced her gently, offering a tender smile that concealed the deep regret in her eyes before silently returning to Zhang Yi's side. Zhang Yi remained composed. You're welcome. We each have our own paths to walk. He continued, Come, Meteor. Now it's your turn to fulfill your destiny. Gucheng approached as well. As the Grand General of the Brilliant Moon Empire, he would escort Meteor onward. Fengde clenched his fists tightly, his gaze fixed on Zhang Yi and Gucheng like he could devour them. "Don't stare at me like that. It won't do you any good," Zhang Yi said with a smile. "I promised the night which I wouldn't harm you," but he lifted his head to the sky. The Brilliant Moon Empire's warships had been watching their every move. "They won't show you any mercy." Fengde took a deep breath and declared in a low voice, "I'm coming with you." He looked at Meteor. "Wherever you go, I will always be by your side." Chapter 24:12, The Eve of the Storm 3. The ship's engines roared, its metallic hull glinting coldly in the biting lunar wind. It was a Sun Yuan Tribe aerospace warship personally modified by Liu Karen, its hull sleek and streamlined, covered in energy runes and shield nodes. Now, it hovered steadily at the edge of the dark sun forest. The hatch slowly opened, welcoming Zhang Yi and his team aboard. Fengde's gaze fixed intently on the ship, his eyes filled with struggle and complexity. His grotesque face twisted slightly in agony, his cloak flapping in the wind. Meteor stood quietly beside him, her hands gently clasping his, her gaze tender yet resolute. "Are you truly sending me to the Brilliant Moon Empire?" The girl's voice was soft, yet it cut through the dead silence like a spring gushing through the night sky. Fengde paused, clenched his teeth, and nodded slowly. "I refuse to return to the dark sun forest. There, only despair and escape await. Even knowing death is the end, I will walk with you to the very end." Meteor's eyes glistened slightly, yet a smile touched her lips. Zhang Yi watched them silently, his gaze cold yet tinged with a hint of softness. He spoke slowly, "Very well, then you shall come along. As long as you do not hinder me in completing my mission, I will not stop you." With that, he stepped onto the spacecraft first. The moment the hatch closed, a deafening hum reverberated through the air. The ship surged forward, breaking through the moon's low-gravity dust haze and racing toward the direction of the Brilliant Moon Empire. Inside the cabin, bright lights illuminated the space. Neat metal floors reflected a faint blue glow. Meteor sat quietly by the porthole, her eyes fixed unblinkingly on the lunar seas and mountains streaking past. Her eyes sparkled with wonder, this was the first time she was seeing the planet's true form with her own eyes. Fengde knelt half-bent beside her, his face perpetually lowered, as if unwilling to let others see his features. Yet Meteor would occasionally turn back, tugging his hand to lift his head and gaze out the window with her. Tisk tisk. Brian swayed his tail lazily, sprawled across the seat, his doggy mouth emitting an untimely grumble. "This vibe feels like some cheap romance drama set. Chaos, are we really on a moon-saving mission, or watching some post-apocalyptic love life?" Meteor paused at the remark, a faint blush spreading across her cheeks. Fengde shot Brian a fierce glare, his eyes nearly boiling over with fury. But Brian couldn't care less. Instead, he shrugged his furry shoulders, licked his nose, and lazily added, "Don't glare at me, man. If it weren't for Chaos's mercy, the grass on your grave would be 2 meters tall by now." Fengde's knuckles cracked sharply, his fingers popping like nuts, as if he might snap at any moment. Fatty Sue immediately lunged forward, wrapping his arms around the dead dog's thick neck while yelling at Fengde, "Calm down. Calm down, bro. If you start a fight on the ship, the pressure'll blow out, and we'll all turn into frozen corpses in the vacuum." Of course, it was just a joke, but it did manage to diffuse some of Fengde's fury. Professor Da Vinci watched the scene with half-open, dead fish eyes, snorting through his nose. If this guy can't hold back and chops Brian to pieces, we'll save on dog food. "Hey, you old fart." Fatty Sue immediately jumped up, fuming. "How can you say that? Brian is our nose radar. We rely on him to track down Fengde and Meteor. If we lose him, where are we supposed to find a replacement?" Brian let out a smug humph, his tail held high. "Did you hear that? I'm irreplaceable." Professor Da Vinci rolled his eyes, reaching into his pocket to produce a peculiar mechanical sphere. With a click, he placed it on the table. "I built a super electronic sniffer 3 days ago, 100 times more precise than you. If it weren't for your entertaining snark, I'd have tossed you out the airlock ages ago." Brian froze, then bristled instantly. Bullshit. Even a machine can't match this dog's keen sense of smell. Chaos. You be the judge. Zhang Yi was leaning back in his chair, eyes closed in relaxation. Hearing the commotion, he opened them lazily and replied nonchalantly, "Why don't you two find a place to solo it out? I'll be the referee." The cabin fell instantly silent. Fatty Sue seized the moment, clutching his stomach and laughing so hard he nearly tumbled from his seat. Ha ha ha. Serves you right. A dog and an old man, both thoroughly tamed by the jailer. Oh my, I'm dying of laughter. Professor Da Vinci's dead fish eyes darted around before he suddenly snapped, "Fatso, laugh one more time and I'll perform gastric bypass surgery on you. Guaranteed to make you lose 20 pounds in a month." Fatty Sue immediately wilted, clutching his stomach and waving his hands frantically. "No, no, no. Professor, I'm sorry, okay? This layer of fat is my last line of defense against the lunar cold." The cabin erupted in laughter. Meteor covered her mouth, unable to stifle her giggles, tears welling in her eyes. This smile wasn't born of finding humor in misery, but because for the first time, beyond despair and fate, she felt the warmth of humanity. Truthfully, both Fatty Sue and Brian were trying to lighten the mood. After all, helplessly sending an innocent girl to her death was hardly a pleasant task. Even Zhang Yi couldn't manage to smile cheerfully while carrying it out. Feng stared at her blankly, his gaze complex. The girl he'd risked his life to protect was now smiling genuinely, because of these people from Earth. The starship traversed the desolate lunar seas, gradually approaching the borders of the brilliant Moon Empire. Beyond the porthole, towering white walls piercing the clouds and a colossal energy dome could be seen in the distance, the capital's defense system of the brilliant Moon Empire. The cabin's laughter and chatter gradually subsided, replaced by a solemn atmosphere. Zhang Yi slowly opened his eyes, his gaze calm. "We've reached the brilliant Moon Empire. I'll hand you all over to the Empire's brilliant Moon Guard next. But Miss Meteor, you should know this place better than I do." Feng suddenly jerked his head up, clenching his fists. Meteor reached out to steady him, her gaze gentle yet resolute. "Whatever the outcome, I must see it with my own eyes. Even if it lasts only this moment, my life will not have been in vain. Come to think of it, I grew up in the brilliant Moon Empire yet never truly observed it properly." She approached the porthole, gazing at the immense, technologically crafted image of the silver moon suspended in the sky. And the immense nation bathed in its radiant glow. A moist, rapturous gleam flickered in her eyes. "Only today did I realize how beautiful the place I grew up in truly is." A brief silence fell over the cabin. Brian clicked his tongue, suddenly breaking the tension. "I can't stand this mood, it feels like some apocalyptic proclamation. Chaos, can I hop off the ship to find some bones to gnaw on? This pup ain't starving to death at the gates of the brilliant Moon Empire." His doggy paws rubbed his eyes. A stone had gotten in there.